Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. This show is about helping you grow as a coach by standing on the shoulders of giants. Each show, you get a different mentor in your ear. The early motivations, the successes, the failures, the tools, the tricks, and the insight into where the industry is going. All of it so you can make your own dent in the world. Remember, success leaves clues. Now, without further ado, on to the show.
Welcome, my friend, to the Coach Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Whitwer. On today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Chris Cooper. Now, this is part 2 of a 2-part series with Chris. If you're interested in learning about how he grew his gym Catalyst, great name by the way, you're going to want to check out part 1 of this series. Now, like anything, you can't have a part 2 without a part 1, and you won't have Chris's current business without his previous business. His current business is Two Brain Business, and it is the largest gym mentorship program in the world. They help gyms run more profitable gyms, they help owners pay themselves more, and they ultimately help them stay in business so they can change more lives. And they're doing this with gyms all over the world. They have built a massively successful business. But like any business, it all started with one gym, and eventually has grown now to over 800 gyms. So we get to chronicle that journey. We get to look at some of the successes, the failures, what Chris's day looks like now when he's running a massive business versus at the beginning. And we have a lot of fun in the process. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode with Chris Cooper and Two Brain Business. So let's kind of shift into, I want to get into some Two Brain stuff. And so I think one thing that's really unique about Two Brain is your guys' systems. I think you've done a really good job of systemizing it, but giving kind of these clear, you could call it level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, but you give them kind of names to make it very visual. Is that kind of something you've always thought in that kind of linear fashion and storytelling, or was that something that kind of came about as this thing grew?
No, I had to get a lot of coaching on that. So I still have mentors. I spend about $250,000 a year on mentorship. And, I learned some things like you have to have like very clear goals, and the smaller you can make those goals, the more likely it is that people are going to hit them. Not because they're easier, but because they become irresistible. And this is something called Lowenstein's gap theory. It's a great, great paper out of Carnegie Mellon, where it's like, if you're in the last 5 pages of a book, you can't not finish the book. Like, nobody walks out of the movie theater with 5 minutes to go. And so what we learned early was like, if we can set these very small achievable goals, people are very likely to ascend. And so, we said, well, we have to define success. There has to be a way that we can say we are being successful in our program or not. Like, how do we know? And so we define success as $100,000 in net owner benefit to the owner. And so that's like our tier 2 goal. The tier 1 goal is like 5 new clients and all these systems and stuff. And then the tier 3 goal is $1 million in net worth. And as soon as we set those goals, people started hitting them way faster, because it's like, okay, one clear target. Now I've got this measuring stick. So as an example, if you say, what's your goal with your gym? Most gym owners will say bigger, but that's not a goal. It's like your client walking into the gym and you say, what's your goal? And they're like, smaller, like, okay, maybe we'll say 10 pounds or whatever. So as soon as we said the goal of our growth phase program is to make $100,000 in net owner benefit, now you've got this lens. So, okay, there's 3 things I can work on today. I can update my Instagram thing. I can call my leads from yesterday, or I can research buying a building. Which one of those things will get me closer to $100,000 in net owner benefit? Calling my leads from yesterday, that's the one I'm going to do. And so now you've got like this focusing lens that helps you make decisions. You're still going to do all that other stuff, but not right now. And that's really like been the key. And then once we started measuring the likelihood of people reaching that mark, $100,000 net owner benefit, we could say, okay, how do we get them there faster? And so where people before would spend like 4 years, 2 months in the program to get there, now we've got that down to about 2 years, 7 months on average. And it's just singularity focus, and that's how we build ascension models now.
Right. The power focus, right?
Yeah.
So when initially you were kind of doing this all yourself, you had 40, plus coaches or gyms that you were working with. Like, did you get to a point where it's like, I need to hire someone, or was someone excelling that, hey, come on, and you're going to learn a little bit more and then mentor these and kind of start stepping it that way? How did you grow this thing strategically at the beginning?
Well, like everything else I do, I screwed it up 5 ways first. So back in 2013, I think I was full. I couldn't take any more clients. And, our bright idea, we'd read this book called Launch. And so the guy that owned the website company and I said, we're going to build a course. We're just going to sell a course. That's how you scale. And so for about 2 months, over Christmas time, my wife and I she would take the kids to the grandparents for 2 hours, and I would set up a tripod in my basement. It wasn't tall enough, so we'd set it on top of these like plastic Fisher-Price chairs and put my camera on it and just like record my headshot. And I painted this wall over here brown so that like my pasty skin would have some contrast, and just recorded me talking. And it was the same conversations that I was having. And then, so we launched this course. We made like $30,000 in a weekend. Again, I thought I had won the lottery, and, we decided to wait for a month to launch it again. At the 3-week mark, I started calling everybody who had bought it for testimonials, right? Like, I was anticipating all these crazy success stories, and nobody had gotten a result. It was like, hey, Trev, hey, what's the number one result you've had from this course? And you're like, oh yeah, that course. Right. Yeah. I logged in, but I got to get to it. I just haven't had time. And then I call the next person, Lindsay, what's your best win so far? I blasted through it, but I didn't really do any of the stuff. So like nobody had really gotten a good result, maybe one guy. And so I'm like, record scratch, we're done. We're not selling this course. It doesn't get results. And the owner and I disagreed to the point where that's eventually what led to me like leaving and founding Two Brain Business. But when I did that, and, I started Two Brain with 16 clients, and I quickly got over 50. I said, okay, I've got to hire other mentors. Like, one-on-one mentorship is it for me. That's what I know works, and that's what we're sticking to. And so I hired 2 of my best clients, Jay Williams, very creative, big thinker. He owned a gym at the time in San Francisco and one in London, UK. And Danielle Brown, very systems oriented, very like by the book, dialed, and started pairing partners that I could with them. Like, Trevor, you need big picture thinking. You're going to go with Jay. And then quickly realized like we needed a common curriculum to work from. So we built this thing called the Incubator, and it was like a 6-week program with a course, and Danny and Jay would help guide them through it. And eventually they trained the next generation of mentors. And that generation trained the next generation. We formalized mentor training now into this like long program that ends in a certification. The current crop of mentors are like generation 5. They're better than I ever was. We've definitely made some mistakes and had some like wrong fits there, but the team right now is incredible. There's over 50 of them worldwide.
And do you find yourself as being, that's kind of how you think, like, we need to do this, we need to do this, or was that from a lot of the mentorship you were getting or helping you kind of structure this thing in a way that allows it to scale?
Well, the first call I have with any new mentor is usually them going, oh my God, why did I take this guy? Because usually we're like fixing mistakes. But, over the last few years, what I've learned is how to like orient myself, right? Like, we are a client-centric business. Everything that we do is geared toward, does the client get a better result? And so that means like we're going to choose an ascension model that gets people results faster. Like, we produced 27 millionaires last year, and that's why, because, everything that we did was built toward producing them. And, so when we do mentor training, they are trained on how to get people better results. And a lot of them go through mentor training and they're like, yo, this was worth it just to do the training. Like, even if I never, ever work for Two Brain, like, so like I always have that focus, but like there are others who have gone before me who have been down this path before. So, when Two Brain hit $1 million, our CFO was Greg Crabtree. And he said, okay, Chris, like, between $1 million and $3 million in annual revenue, That's called the Valley of Death. You're going to be hiring really skilled, high value people ahead of the revenue to pay them, but you have to do it. And so, our profit margin shrunk to like 4% there for a year. And we didn't grow as fast, but he was right. And now like we've got that platform. And then, I was working with Dan Martell from 2016 to 2017. And he said, okay, you've got to have like a recurring system afterward because you've got these people momentum and now you're just like turning them loose into the wild again. Like you got to keep their momentum going. So that set up our growth phase. And then, Todd Herman was my mentor 2018 to 2020. And we talked about like the power of an audience more than anything else. Right. And so that really helped us grow too. And then of course there's like specialists along the way. Like, at this point, it's more like a team of mentors, than like one single person because we're just, we're too big now. Right. So like it's common for me to pay a podcasting coach $12,000 for 12 weeks to get better at podcasting because like a 1% improvement in our podcast is worth like $70,000 to the company, So.
Right. Why do you think you've been able to grow this, or why Two Brain has grown to, 800 plus, where there's tons of business coaches out there, right? Like they're a dime a dozen, especially in the fitness industry. What have you guys done differently that's allowed you to kind of grow and scale where someone maybe isn't able to do that in another realm?
A big part of it is just like commitment to helping. Like if there ever comes a day when the blog isn't helping people, we'll stop doing the blog, right? Like I don't have a sunk cost mentality at all. If the podcast is no longer useful, it's gone, On the other hand, as soon as something is useful, like TikTok videos, I'm going to go out and spend $20,000 to talk to somebody for a day about how to do that so that I can teach it back to the gym owners. And so like a big part of this was recognizing early on that like, I'm not going to be the ultimate expert. I'm not going to have the best gym that everybody aspires to. I'm going to be the connector. And, I learned that from Todd Herman and, the connectors ultimately win. And so like, that's probably it. We can talk about influence later on because this has really come to bear recently. One of my mentors right now is Bonnie Skinner. She's a psychotherapist. And it's, the work that I do with her is more like accepting that it's happening and watching it happen instead of feeling like I have to have my finger on every switch every day, So that's part of it. Another big part is like, we're the first to call out our own mistakes. So a lot of business coaches, hide their mistakes. Let's put it that way. Or they'll exaggerate like, their success or whatever. And I'm in a lot of masterminds where this happens a lot. But, if we make a mistake, we're usually the first people to call it out because we don't want somebody else to figure it out and them to become skeptical of us because, we didn't share it.
Yeah, trust and especially in the fitness industry when you have an industry full of kind of charlatans is huge, and especially in the internet age, is most all information eventually becomes public at some point, and so I think that's awesome.
That's another thing we hear a lot, Trevor, is like your free information is better than their paid program. And early on from Seth, who spoke at our summit about 2 years ago, he said like, knowledge is free and that's not what you're selling. So just tell everybody everything, and so like in the books and the podcasts and the free guides we give out in gymownersunited.com, like we tell them exactly what to do. And we also say like, we want you to make $10,000 with this free thing so you can afford to have a mentor because that's what ultimately I think everybody needs. But like, when I met Seth for the first time, I'm like, the biggest question I need to ask you is, where do you draw the line? between what you give away for free and what you sell. And he said, there is no line. And I was like, okay, there's no. So now we just like, if anything, we give way more depth and we give samples and templates and stuff in our private group that we don't give away for free, but we'll tell you how to do it for free.
Mm-hmm. And is that always been, I mean, talking to you in this conversation, that's kind of seems like that's always kind of been in the back of your head where, hey, I'm going to give away all this information for free. Even with the blog, don't buy ads, right? Like, I mean, you're just kind of showing all of your mistakes. So hopefully someone else doesn't make them. And the goal necessarily at that time wasn't to build a business coaching business. It was more kind of organization of your own thoughts. But my guess is that then did help build the business aspect from a credibility standpoint, but also from a, influence standpoint, because people now know who you are, and then taking the next step to get mentorship is a whole lot easier.
Yeah. And we're finding that now. And I can share with you like what we've mapped out about what we think about influence now. But, I didn't realize it at the time, but putting my mistakes out there was just a way for me to not repeat them, Mm-hmm. But if you think about like the people that you're skeptical of online, and it used to be people selling fat loss supplements and stuff, but now it's business coaches. If you think about like why you're naturally skeptical about them, it's because you don't know what they've screwed up. And so you mistrust every claim that they make until you know exactly where they've made their mistakes. And as soon as you know that parameter, it's like you found ground level, and now you can build up trust and authority. But too few people do it. And, like the blog posts that people share, the books that they recommend that I've written, the stuff that they bring for me to sign, it's always like, well, I screwed that up, So more than the content, I think, is like the trust. And in a time of crisis, that you can build trust so fast just by being genuine and saying, this is working, that's not, and here's how I know.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, do you think COVID really catapulted that because of your ability to gather data in, almost kind of like telling the future, right? Because you're seeing it happen in one part of the world, and then being able to strategically plan for when it comes to the next part of the world. Did you guys see a boon during that time?
We didn't see a dip at all. Like we stayed even. I think we probably, during the first lockdowns, Two Brain probably had about 550 gyms, maybe 600. And we came out, a year later, we had the same number, which was great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But now we're like way over 800. And so we built a ton of trust and authority in that crisis. But again, like it came back to what we perceived our responsibility to be. So 2018, I'm sitting in CrossFit HQ in Santa Cruz. Everybody back then used to go to the same cafe for breakfast and just sit outside under these umbrellas. And the CEO and the COO of CrossFit at the time were there. And they're like, what can we actually do to help affiliates? And I said, you just got to collect the data. Like, you don't have to tell us what to do with it. I get it. You're not a franchise. You don't want to do that. But just give us the data so that we can make an informed decision instead of guessing or being led astray. Mm-hmm. And the COO, Bruce, was like, that's a great idea. We're never going to do it. And so I went back to my hotel room and I was so mad. And finally, I was like, I'm the only one right at that point in 2018 with the connections to actually do it. Like I'm friends with Wodify, Push Press, Mind Body, Zen Planner. Like I had just spoken at Zen Planner the month before, and like I could ask all these guys for data and probably get it. And so we started publishing what we call the State of the Industry in 2019. And that was like a blog post. And now it's become this like massive publication that we mail to like 6,000 gyms. And it's the biggest data set in the industry. But we did it because we thought it was like our duty to do it because nobody else would. And again, it was like, boy, I sure wish I had this when I needed it,
Were you guys always big on data from the beginning? I mean, most business coaches, you're going to track things like gross revenue and profit and that kind of stuff. But were there other kind of data points where you're like, hey, we have this subset of people and we could have a lot of data here that's really going to inform things? Was that a conscious decision right from the beginning, or did kind of COVID force that?
No, right from the beginning. I mean, I'm a skeptic by nature. And so when somebody, like you remember the gym launch days, right? And these guys would be like, yeah, I'm making 500,000 this year. And in reality, they had like 1 month where they did 40,000 and they just like projected that was going to continue forever.
Right.
And so I would be like, yeah, right. And then, I'm so skeptical of most things that like, I want to see actual numbers and decide for myself. And so like one of the top roles at Two Brain is Chief Information Officer. Mike Lee is amazing at this. And we don't like sell his research or anything, but that's his job. And so we had to like build our own app to collect this stuff. That cost me well over $1 million. That was, whatever. But in 2018, like that's all I could do.
Right.
Mike's in charge of that. We have like an independent analyst that comes in and does our state of the industry just to make sure that we're looking at it objectively. And I'm not like just reporting the stuff that makes Two Brain look good, but I think like that builds a lot of trust. And, I got to tell you a funny story, man. So now we were also like, here's the benefit of this. Every time somebody looks at this data set, which is the biggest in the industry, they're going to say Two Brain because we are the ones who have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we didn't think of was that they would just read it and not say Two Brain. So I can show you YouTube videos of guys who are like, let me tell you the state of the fitness industry. Let's discuss these trends. And they're reading this guide and you can see like the Two Brain logo, but they're like covering it with their hand and they're not linking to Two Brain, right? It's hilarious, but I'm so glad it's happening because it's like helping gym owners.
Right. And inadvertently, like, like if you're kind of in the industry and kind of, who's there, where it comes from. And so, but I mean, all press, even bad press is usually good, right? So the more eyeballs you can get on stuff, the better.
Man, I'll tell you that the best Two Brain gyms coming in have often been with another business coach first, or maybe even two, and like ascended to us. So for example, like, years ago, I had a business coach and I was like, can you help me with this thing? And he gave me a worksheet to work through. I don't remember what it was. And I'm like, I've seen this before, like verbatim. Where did you get this? And he kind of like reluctantly admitted, oh, it's this guy named Taki Moore. And so I found this guy, Taki Moore, and I'm like, where did you get this worksheet? And he's like, I got it from this guy named Dan Sullivan. Call up Dan Sullivan's team. How do I sign up for your program? Like, find the source. And so a lot of these startup competitors, they get really popular for about a year and then they like ascend people to Two Brain. So they're they don't want to be a referral network for me, but a lot of them are.
Mm-hmm. That works, right?
It's awesome.
So, I mean, being connected to kind of 800 plus, like really data points in the gym world, and really just so that if anyone's listening that isn't familiar with Two Brain, your kind of core market is like the boutique fitness industry, whether it's CrossFit or personal training, small group training, not necessarily like the Lifetime Fitness, the Gold's Fitness, or big box type gym, correct?
Yeah, there's more franchisees coming in now, like F45. 9 Round is really big. There's some smaller franchises whose franchisees sign up now, but like the Gold's Gym and stuff, we're just starting to work with them. Like we have 1,700 alumni and they're all bricks and mortar, single owner, usually first time entrepreneur, might be CrossFit, might be kickboxing, might be something else, but like, yeah.
As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
So with that kind of data set in mind, where are you seeing the industries trending towards?
Up first. So the whole data set is like much way beyond our own clients. So our own clients right now is about 811 gyms in our mentorship practice, but we have access to data through partnerships, connections again, to about 16,000 gyms. And so like, don't worry if you're a Wodify client, they're not handing us like your data. They're handing us like a package, right? That says like, here's all these different gyms and what they're doing. So what we see is growth in certain areas, still opportunities in other areas. So first off, like most gyms that survived COVID came out way stronger. They started to see about an 8% surge the month or 2 months after they reopened. And that was great because it kind of tapered off. But like the last couple months, December, January, massive surge again, and it's like, people are now kind of over this. We're not going to be locked down anymore. But also, there's a new focus on health and fitness, really. So that's been awesome. Our gyms have jumped quite a bit. Second is a refocus on client value. You've probably seen like there are a dozen high ticket, quote unquote, programs out there. And these are all good because they teach gym owners like their true value, right? Like you're not competing at $130. Like you could be charging $1,300 a month. That's your actual value. And so what they're doing is they're like resetting the entire frame of what gyms should be charging. And so I like them for that reason. None of these programs are permanent, but you can go through it in like 12 weeks, build a high ticket offer or whatever. Great. There's a lot more of that. Even gyms that had like, 20, there's one guy that called me a couple of weeks ago. He had 23 facilities. He's down to 2. And he's like, no, we're 100% focused on client value now. It's not about client headcount. So I'm glad that message is finally getting through. Candidly, I have a conversation with somebody at CrossFit HQ at least once a week now, and this is what they want to talk about. Like, is the 150 model, and what does client value have to be, and like, how long does it take to make a gym successful? So, with that said, there's a focus on client value. I think in the future, there's going to be more and more focus on retention. That is like super important. If you want to change somebody's life, they can't leave your gym at 7 months, 8 days, which is the average. There's going to be, it's much easier to talk about like profit right now than it ever has been, especially with CrossFit. That was like, you don't say profit back in the day. Now it's common. And I think like there's a growing need for kind of you don't want to call it a union, but like a group of gym owners that are going to collaborate and share stuff. And we're really starting to see that inside Two Brain. People are like, I made this doc, you can have it. Here's my ad copy, take it. But you're also seeing that in the Gym Owners United group, where if you create the right environment for collaboration and you filter out all the jerks, man, everybody rises, right? So I think those are some of the big trends. The other big one, like to be more tactical, is a move towards semi-private training. So like personal trainers, you don't have to jump to group training. You can go small groups of 4. I think if I had known that, I wouldn't have opened a separate CrossFit gym. I would have scaled my one-on-one practice that way. I've got Brian Bott. He's literally in the air right now, flying up here from Long Island to stay with me for a day or two and just like shoot video on how to scale to semi-private. Nutrition coaching is a big opportunity. Like, we've been talking about the value of nutrition coaching for, 6 years now. And it's still on average, like 4% of a gym's revenue, massive opportunity there. And something that we were wrong about was selling access to clients. So, we 2 years ago said like, don't add 24/7 access. You're going to drive down the value of your service. And at the time, I think, we were thinking about it right, but now there are models of gyms who are doing that successfully and selling it just to their clients. It's part of their like higher service package. They're charging $70 a month and up, and they're making like 6 to 8% of their gross revenue from it with almost no work. So yeah, we're learning, and the trends, hopefully people are learning from us, and like the trends follow that.
So I want to touch on the nutrition coaching piece. Yeah. Why do you think that hasn't taken off more, or more gyms aren't making it a part of their kind of menu of services?
I think it's kind of the perfect storm. So number one is legality. They don't know what the laws are and they're scared of it. Second is this fear of like selling a higher value service, right? Like somebody walks into the gym owner is like, well, nutrition coaching is another $100 a month. And the person is like, well, I came in the door to exercise. Like, let's just try that first. And then the gym owner never comes back to it. You have to really have a prescriptive model where you're tracking. And also, like, no gym owner wants to admit that their program isn't working. So if the client isn't losing weight, they just don't put them on the scale. You know, I've been there. Other than that, like, you know, there are a lot of great certs out there. Like precision nutrition is amazing, but you know, they don't really tell you how to grow the nutrition part of your business very well. And so I think that's part of it too, you know. And the last thing is, like, we all got in this to coach exercise, not to talk about carbs.
Right.
So we just don't. Right.
Do you see the consumer market moving more towards a kind of holistic style of offering where, hey, I'm not just coming to the gym to exercise anymore. I'm also looking for nutrition, stress management, all of these kind of recovery, all of these other factors? Are you seeing that in kind of your world?
Yeah. I mean, and that's reflected, I think, in these so-called like high ticket packages, right? So a high ticket package is just basically like, Trevor, I'm going to solve your problem. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'll give you everything you need. It's going to cost you about 4 times what a gym membership would cost you, 5 times. And in doing so, I will give you play-by-play nutrition. I will give you workouts to do. I will coach you through those workouts. I will text you every day, etc. And so rolled into that package, like those packages, usually the whole is more than the sum of its parts. That's where we see like an actual rise in nutrition sales. Everywhere else is really flat.
Mm-hmm. And is that something you guys are teaching at Two Brain right now as well, as coming up with this? Because the other thing that high ticket thing can be is it can be anchor, right? It can be an anchor to your other pricing. And so, hey, if I have something on the menu that's $1,500, all of a sudden $300 a month doesn't look all that expensive. So is that something you guys are teaching at all at Two Brain right now?
We do. And we weren't the first, definitely. Like there are programs out there that just teach that. What we wanted to do was sample some of those programs and teach people how to do it in a way that they didn't feel like they were doing high pressure sales. Honestly, it does feel like that sometimes. So what we did, we had to like Two Brain it basically, and we brought it into our curriculum. We have a specialist who works with people just on putting those together. But the core is like the gym owner has to believe this is an amazing package and well worth the money before they can sell it. Like a lot of these programs, even historically, I can go back 10 years. They're going to tell you like, you sell this $500 thing. And here it is. I'm going to drill you on sales. Drill. And then they sell a couple of packages and they're like, woohoo, you know, it works. And then the gym owner, like they're out of the program. Nobody's drilling them on sales anymore. They didn't ever really felt great about it. And so they just stopped doing it. You know, I can remember like New You Challenge, Gym Launch was like this quite a bit. And it's just like, if the gym owner doesn't understand its value and wholeheartedly believe it's the best thing for the client, they won't sell it for very long. And so we took quite a while to bring it into our program and teach it. But now, there's a lot of gyms who at least have it on the books.
As a gym owner, Coach Catalyst is the key to having low turnover. For several years, I struggled and spent 10 to 20 hours a week communicating with clients via phone calls, Facebook Messenger, email, and text messages. I had tried everything to make my life more efficient. I was at my wit's end. And then I found Coach Catalyst. Since starting the software, I have found a life again, and my clients are thanking me for being so involved in their fitness life. I've cut my daily commitment to interacting with over 300 clients to under 15 minutes a day and have streamlined my 6-week challenges. I couldn't recommend it more. I just don't know if I would even be here today if it wasn't for Coach Catalyst. If you don't have an account already, you're missing out and not helping the people you could be.
So what does Chris Cooper's days look like now? And so you're not in the necessarily like startup mode anymore. You've got teams, you've got great people, you brought in people smarter than yourself to help handle different operations, right?
Yeah.
And now it's truly like a business. And so how do you continue to kind of provide value for the company? Is it, tracking the vision? Is it, managing the teams? What's your role now in Two Brain?
It's really connections, and partnerships, and I can talk about the influence thing. So I'm the CEO and I'm paid as the CEO. 2 years ago, I thought like, man, I don't know if I want to be the CEO anymore. Let's hire somebody. But, and ultimately we've just kind of realized like, no, I need to be in that chair and I need to be in front of it. And I need to own that. So I get up at 5. I usually write a blog post and that organizes my day more than anything else. Some days we're doing like, different team meetings. So I have a meeting 3 times a week, once with the COO, once with the CIO, chief info officer, once with the head of marketing. And then, every month we'll have like an exec meeting with all 4 of us. After that, so I get up, write for a bit. I do some posts for the social team. I look for ways to help, in our like private groups first. If it's not, if I don't find like at least 5, I'll go to our public group, Gym Owners United, look for ways to contribute in there, then usually work out, have lunch, take a nap, and then kind of restart my day again. So around 1 or 2 o'clock, I'm usually like doing a couple of calls. When I don't have calls booked, my staff laughs at this, but like I will just randomly pick up my phone and start calling them, and sometimes even clients. And that's it. My bigger job though is connecting people. So I have other business coaches approach me right now for mentorship. Like, how do we build in our niche to what you've done in Two Brain? So I work with a half a dozen of those, secretly. I don't really talk about it. And then, we get approached for partnership a lot. Like there's a upcoming, huge partnership with Spartan Race DECA coming that, we just go into these things and we say like, will this help gym owners? In this case, the Spartan partnership will do massive things for gym owners. Great. Let's make that deal. And so those are the calls that I take basically. That's it.
And then, you're kind of involved in the local entrepreneurship world as well, right?
Yeah, I've got a struggling city, and it's, it boomed during the industrial era, and now those industries are just like literally collapsing. Buildings are falling down. And what's going to save it is entrepreneurship. We don't need a new car plant. We need 100 new small businesses. So as I was, getting more and more requests, as our mentor team was growing and these outside business coaches were calling for advice, and, local entrepreneurs were like, can we get together for lunch? I just decided to put like all the stuff that I was talking about with them in one spot. And so we published businessisgood.com, a few weeks ago. It's got a podcast on there where I talk about this stuff. And, I have a new book called The Simple 6, which is just like, this is our operating system for Two Brain mentors. It's a little bit like higher level than some of my other books, but it's extremely tactical, and you could own any business. I've got examples in there from like salons I've worked with, home improvement contractors. You could apply this and like grow any business. And I don't want to work one-on-one with the local Dairy Queen, but I can at least like give them this book and help them grow.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I love it.
Thanks, man.
And you have a couple kids too, right?
Yeah. One of them sitting right here playing Fortnite, and the other one's at university right now. Awesome.
How old are the two?
15, 18.
Okay. So you're kind of on the tail end of being at home.
Hopefully not. We want to give them an environment they never want to leave, but they always do.
Right. Yeah. Right. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate this. I've got some kind of quick rapid fire questions I want to throw at you. Maybe you looked at them before, maybe you didn't. Usually it's better when they didn't, but all right. So first one, taco, burrito, or quesadilla?
Oh man. Burrito.
Burrito?
Yeah. I like it like tight and controlled,
Maybe you're in Canada, so maybe I should have thrown in like some poutine or something like that.
Not poutine, no. Not pancakes and maple syrup. I feel like I've contracted diabetes when I have that. Yeah, burrito any day of the week, sure.
All right. I love it. Something you've purchased for like $100 or less that has had profound value or profound impact in your life. Anything come to mind?
It's usually books or dinner. Like I love giving people gifts, man. So like, I look for opportunities to send gifts. So, frequently I will ship somebody coffee, or I was working with this business coaching group for cheer gyms on Friday, and they were very close to like having their best month ever. They needed 5 sales. And so I was like, I will ship you a dozen lobsters if you like sell 5 of these things. And they did it, So I think it's more like that mindset than anything else. We're constantly shipping coffee. We probably ship a dozen cards a day from Two Brain. But yeah, books. So I often go on Amazon and order like 20 copies of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Influence. And I just keep them on my shelf. And if somebody's like visiting, they're getting a copy, like a local high school class came in last week and they all left with like a bag of stuff, because I love doing that stuff.
Outside of your books, which are great starter books for kind of gym owners, what would be some other books that you might recommend for the kind of the budding gym owner, or maybe the personal trainer that wants to do it on their own and kind of start their own thing? Are there any that come to mind?
Yeah, the E-Myth is big. That was pivotal for me. Good to Great was really pivotal for me. Think Like a Monk. I mean, that's more for like mature gym owners who they're like successful, but they're always busy and they can't stop thinking about their gym. They're always looking at their phone. Like, that's a really good one. I think it's valuable to read fiction. So I've got a lot of those fiction books here too, because like that just makes you a better writer. All my business books are at work. But yeah, I give away Rich Dad, Poor Dad to like everybody I meet. I give away How to Win Friends and Influence People all the time. And the E-Myth is probably the third one. Another great one is Anything You Want by Derek Sivers. So the key point here is like, you can do anything, but you can't do it right now. So put it on the shelf. And like, there's way too many gym owners who are doing $30,000, $40,000 a month in revenue. And, so now they've finally achieved a little bit of scalability, like they've got their systems down. And instead of just going all in on that, they're like, oh, I've got a little bit of success, I'm going to go open a cafe, And so that's a good book for them, because that's me all the time. Oh, I can start that company? I must. I've got like 80 domain name registered, and don't do it.
I hear you, man. I'm in the same boat, 100%. If someone was kind of introduced to you for the first time, what's the first book of yours they should read?
Depends who they are. I mean, a gym owner should probably read Gym Owner's Handbook. If they're a future gym owner, it should be Start a Gym, probably. If they've owned a gym for a while and they're struggling to see like, where do I go, then Founder, Farmer, Tinker, Thief is probably best. If they've had a little bit of progress and they want to keep that going, or they just like can't get any traction, then I think The Simple Six is probably going to be a huge one for them. It's really just about like incremental gains, setting aside 30 minutes every single day to work on your business before you do anything else, and like exactly what to do in that 30 minutes.
And The Simple Six, that's your newest one? Is that right?
Yeah, it's out tomorrow.
Okay, right on. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, next one we got. What cartoon world do you wish you could spend a week living in? So,
cartoon world.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we watched the Smurfs a lot. And that, it seemed like they had a pretty simple, happy life. So I'm going to go with the Smurfs.
Smurfs, it's a great one. Awesome. All right, last one we got here. If you could have dinner with anyone on the planet, past or present, who do you sit down with and have a conversation?
Man, that changes by the hour. Actually, there is one. Yeah. So the best fiction author in America today is named James Lee Burke. He's 85 now. He's not going to last too much longer. But this guy, he teaches as he writes. He writes in a language that's like artistic, but like he just writes the stickiest stories ever. Like you could finish the book and tell the entire story to somebody else without thinking about it. I'd probably say James Lee Burke right now. Other than that, it'd be my grandfather, who I just did not appreciate his wisdom until he was gone.
Right. What's your James Lee Burke? Any favorite books of his?
He's got so many. Like this whole shelf is James Lee Burke, but
okay.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Read them all.
You just gotta pick any of them, and it would be a winner.
You can't lose. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Chris. If people want to learn a little bit more about Two Brain, a little bit more about what you're doing, what are some of the places on the interwebs where they can do that?
There's so much. If you are a gym owner, it's definitely twobrainbusiness.com. You'll find the podcast, you'll find the YouTube channel, you'll find the blog there. GymOwnersUnited.com is like our free group. That's the best place to find everything for free because we publish 11 times a week. If you're not a gym owner, probably businessisgood.com talks about like just some higher level stuff, like our philosophy of giving, what kids should be learning in school, how our governments can promote entrepreneurship, and like how I built Two Brain from a 200 word blog to like a $25 million company.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Thanks, man.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate hanging out and telling your story, and appreciate what you guys are doing in the industry, just really helping create a healthier world and healthier owners. So it's awesome.
Thanks, Trevor. This flew by. I can't believe it's been 1:45 already. Holy.
That's the testament of having fun, right?
Yeah, exactly. It flies. I really appreciate it, man. You're such a great interviewer. Thanks for your patience and great questions.
I love it.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.